Whether as a doorway to new places, friends, hobbies, or to our innermost desires, it's hard to deny that the furry fandom or community or whatever you want to call it has played no small role in many of our lives. It's likely the reason you're here on my channel watching this video, so I'm not sure any further proof is even needed. But I got to thinking about how we project ourselves into our characters, and with furry often being such a cornerstone of who we are, you'd expect that it would come along for the ride. But then I really started thinking about it and, well, this is the Mouthful, I am Bravado, and there's a question that needs an answer. Now at first glance, this question might seem like kind of an obvious or unnecessary one, but I promise there's more to it. And let's be honest, have you watched the other videos in this series? That's practically my brand. But before we can answer this question, we have to tackle some others. The first being, what exactly is the world your fursona inhabits? Perhaps they exist as an anthro in this current world thanks to some miracle scientific breakthrough, or maybe they're a cartoon in an entirely different toon universe, or even a Roger Rabbit situation where there are animated neighborhoods scattered throughout an otherwise real landscape. There are lots of possibilities, and none of them are right or wrong. My personal canon, and I imagine this will resonate for a lot of y'all, is that maybe humans just never evolved from apes, and instead we got a world full of other animals who rose up to fill their place. And in the interest of moving things along, that's the anthropomorphic world we'll be imagining as we continue. Now obviously, the animals in this world have evolved to be intellectually and technologically on par with our real one. Think Zootopia or DuckTales. But does that mean all of them have? Or are there unevolved versions of all these animals as well? Are there wild coyotes and tigers and cows and so on and so forth? I mean, considering that apes still exist in spite of humans, I'd reckon so. And that's fortunate because an ecosystem without wildlife would probably have long since collapsed. So we know that our anthro animals live alongside their feral counterparts and humans are nowhere to be found, which means we can move on to the next question. I know you might be wondering why this is relevant, but just trust me. Would I, shining example of coyote kind, lead you astray? Moving on. I'm sure if you're watching this, you are already more than familiar with what furry is about, so let's just recap some of the main points. Point 1. Furry is a fascination with and/or enthusiasm for anthropomorphic animals. Whether cartoon or mythical or real, it don't matter. If they're animals with people traits, they count. Point 2. Furry has long been a safe space for people who feel socially outcast in some way. It has strong roots as an offshoot of geek culture, but it's also notably queer and is somewhat of a haven for LGBTQIA+ folks. Point 3. Furry often represents an escape from humanity. Now this one's a little more complicated because there are several interpretations that depend on what humanity represents to you. It could be about reaching the highest level of sentience, aka being fully self-aware, a trait currently reserved for but often lacking in human beings, or it could be about human society, particularly with how we seem to achieve a sort of callousness not found in lesser species. Point 4. Furry can simply be a tool for self-exploration that allows us to project our ideals and desires into a character that we can shape and mold and embody when it's convenient. It's a way to try new and strange things on for size in a low-stakes environment before committing them to our public, real-life persona. And point 5. Oh, this just says horny for anthros. I mean, not wrong, but a little redundant. There's a lot more that we could go into with any and all of these, but that's not what this video is about, so maybe another time. What's important is that we've laid the groundwork to be able to answer the real question. The main question as I see it is whether furry would have any reason to even exist in an anthropomorphic world, which is why we first needed to figure out why it exists today. If furry truly served no purpose beyond being a fan of anthropomorphic animals, then an anthro society would render it entirely moot. That's like saying we need some sort of special fandom for humans in our current human world. That doesn't mean it can exist as is though. A huge component of furry as we know it is scouring the animal kingdom to find the perfect one to represent you. And that's pretty easy to do when those animals have no awareness of how we're portraying them and can effectively act as a foundation on which to build a character. But in a society of intelligent animals, all of whom have their own thoughts and feelings and experiences, it's obviously different. I just can't ignore the parallels between race and species because both have culture and traditions and history that extend beyond simply where they live or are from. And with cultural appropriation being such a problematic occurrence in our world, it's not hard to imagine that special appropriation would cause similar tension. Consider some of the tired tropes that we already have to deal with currently, like how all coyotes are untrustworthy, or all coyotes are drunkards, or all coyotes smell like trash. And then imagine saying that about a group of people. You wouldn't, I hope, because it's gross and they'll rightfully resent you for it. Like me. I resent it right now and I'm the one who said it. All this means is that we need to rethink exactly what your fursona's fursona is or can be, which means looking at the parts of furry that are still relevant, namely that it's a safe space for some and or an escape for others. There's no reason to think that anthros wouldn't go through similar experiences with regards to figuring out their own identities, whether that's big picture stuff like sexual orientation or gender or simply discovering new hobbies or kinks. But one thing that's been hanging over this conversation, at least for me, is the idea of species dysphoria, and whether it would be a larger phenomenon in a furry world. This concept, which simply means that the species one identifies as is different from their physical species, already exists in our current world and is known as otherkin, but it's niche. There's no real existing alternative to human beings, so these folks generally end up identifying as fantasy creatures, which is likely why it's written off as fringe by so many. I don't know that this would be the case in a world where there are legitimate other intelligent species one could have been, but at that point it also becomes difficult for me to separate it fully from the idea of racial dysphoria and trans race, which is also a thing. And now we're back to the race versus species conundrum. There are ways to avoid this, I think, whether by creating a new character within your own species, or a chimera or some other fantastical beast, though if your current fursona is already one of those, I don't know what to tell you. It's a little easier if you simply fantasize about an escape. While it's nice to think that our utopian furry vision wouldn't face the same issues as this terrible human world, nobody's nerfect, and even then, I think the temptation to abandon society and retreat into the wilderness forever would be pretty irresistible for some. I get the feeling that in many cases, this would manifest as folks wishing they could return to the dumb, unevolved versions of themselves, operating mostly on instinct and not overthinking every minute decision. But it's certainly just as possible that a raccoon might wish for the blissful porcine simplicity of daily mud wallows and basking in the sun, rather than agonizing over social media algorithms. This is one of those things where the more you think about it, the less sense it makes, and it's real easy to run yourself around in circles over something that's ultimately pretty inconsequential. But I have good news for you, because the real answer, the one that's been inside us all along, is that your character can be whatever you want them to be, as long as it's not hurting anybody in our current, real world. This is especially fortunate news for me, because I got a lot of chicken-related artwork that was about to become real problematic otherwise. Now it's time for me to do the YouTube thing where I ask you to like and subscribe and tell all your friends, because I really don't want that raccoon I was talking about earlier to just up and vamoose. He has all the social media passwords, and without those I'd really be in a predicament. And of course, if y'all have a question you'd like me to sink my teeth into, leave a comment here or hit me up over on Twitter. Thanks for watching, get your shots, and I'll catch y'all later.